meeting to order Monday, 11/28/2011. Stay for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mark.
Mr. Giovanangelo?
Here.
Mr. Jim?
Here.
Mrs. Wolford?
Here.
Mr. Scapora?
Here.
Mr. Baldneri?
Here.
Mr. Forish? Mayor Griffin?
Present.
6 present.
Mr. Bell.
Madam Mayor, members of council, as you indicated, this is a special meeting preceding our agenda session. And there are 2 items for consideration before council. The first item would be to fill the unexpired terms of certain members of the Latrobe Parking Authority. These positions were vacated at a prior meeting. And it is under the charter, the duty of the mayor to make an appointment, and I would then read a resolution with that name, and then council would take a vote, because the charter does say with the approval and consent of council. If that nominee is appointed, then we would move to the next nominee. And I would suggest that we start with the first position, which expires January 31, 2012, and that is the position of Richard L. Almond Jr. Do you have a nominee or an appointee for that position, Madam Mayor?
I appoint Mr. John Hauser to that position.
And I'll read an appointing resolution for council's vote. Appointing member to the Latrobe Parking Authority, now therefore be it resolved, section 1, that John Hauser being is hereby appointed as a member of the Latrobe Parking Authority to fill the unexpired term of Richard L. Almond Jr., said term to expire January 31, 2012. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
Questions?
I have a question before we start voting. Al might be out of order here, but can you explain to me why we ripped that parking authority apart there? What was the reason for that?
Excuse me, do we have a second?
We don't have a
We didn't have-
motion
We
or a
need a
second.
motion and a second.
I'll make the motion. Okay, Mrs. Wolford, motion second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Baldneri.
Okay, I'd like to have it explained to me why we stripped that authority like we did.
Why?
Yes.
Why do you think?
You tell me, Mr. Ballnary.
No, you speculate as to why.
You brought it up last month and you did
Yeah,
that.
I
I'd
did.
like to know why. You didn't explain why. I'd like to know why.
You know why, Fabian.
No, tell me.
Because the parking authority, that as it had previously been formed, failed to comply with our wishes as a council.
I think we were at gridlock. I mean, we only had so much money to spend, and they wanted to spend more money than we had. So nothing was being done. And we're sitting here at a year and a half plus with no decision being made and gridlock. I mean, you know, we only have so much money to spend. And they voted several times for full construction, but they have no way to pay for it except on the backs of the taxpayers, and we weren't willing to do that.
Okay.
Does that satisfy you?
Yes, Mr. Ballnary.
Oh, Fabian.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yes,
Any
Madam
other?
Mayor, yes, this is the question, is this to fill the vacancy of, or the proposed vacancy of Richard Almond
Yes.
by Mr. Hauser, his term to expire 1/31/12?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. All right. Any other questions? Okay, Barb.
This is resolution 2011-66. Mr. Giovanangelo?
Yes.
Mr. Jim?
No.
Mrs. Wolford?
Yes.
Mr. Baldneri?
Yes.
Mr. Scapora?
No.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Vote is 4 yes, 2 no.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next item would be to fill the unexpired term of Joanne Congilio on the Parking Authority, said term to expire January 31, 2013. Madam Mayor, do you have an appointee for that position?
Yes, I nominate Dr. Weigel.
Dr. Roger Weigel?
Yes.
Okay. I have an appointing resolution, appointing member to Parking Authority, that A. Roger Weigel being is hereby appointed as a member of the Latrobe Parking Authority, fill the unexpired term of Joanne Congilio, said term to expire January 31, 2013, and the motion would be to adopt the resolution.
May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Ballinieri? Any questions or discussions? Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2011-67. Mr. Baldner.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenangelo.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next resolution would be to fill the unexpired term of Richard M. Palick, said term to expire January 31st, 2014. Madam Mayor, do you have an appointee for this position?
Are we on to?
I think I have it on. You're on 214.
2014.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I nominate Skip Balliner.
I will read a resolution appointing member to the Latrobe Parking Authority. Now therefore be resolved, section 1, that Skip Bollinger being is hereby appointed as a member of the Latrobe Parking Authority to fill the unexpired term of Richard M. Palick, said term to expire January 31, 2014. The motion would be to adopt the resolution.
May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Scapora, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Baldinieri. Sorry, Kim. Any questions or discussion? Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2011-68. Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenangelo.
Yes.
Mr. Baldner.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, the next appointment would be to fill the unexpired term of Stephen D. Brown, said term to expire January 31, 2016. Do you have a nominee or an appointee for that position, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Dr. James Ramsey.
The resolution would read, appointing member to the Latrobe Parking Authority, now therefore be resolved. Section 1, that Dr. James Ramsey being is hereby appointed as a member of the Latrobe Parking Authority to fill the unexpired term of Stephen D. Brown, said term to expire January 31, 2016. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as read.
Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Mrs. Wolford, second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Ballinieri. Any questions or discussion?
Yes. Where does Mr. Ramsey live?
Doctor.
Unity Township, it isn't.
I think it's in a Unity Township, but he has a residence. I mean, he has his office in Latrobe.
What kind of an office is
He's a
it?
dentist.
Is this along that same Weldon Street corridor?
It's on
Yeah, it's on-
the Spring Street side of the courtyard.
Yeah.
See, it's inside the courtyard?
Yes.
Okay, so we already have Dr. Weigel and Mr. Hauser, both whom own properties on Weldon Street and have a great interest in the garage, and now you're proposing that we hire that we appoint Dr. Ramsey,
Yes.
whose offices are alongside of the garage. Is that correct?
Yes. Other questions or discussion? Okay, Barb.
This is resolution 2011-69. Mr. Jim.
No.
Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenangelo.
Yes.
Mr. Baldner.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 5 yes, 1 no.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, that concludes the appointments.
I'd just like to make
Okay.
one comment before we close this meeting, vis-à-vis what Richard's line of questioning. I know what he's getting at.
Well, please tell me.
I think we have people who have expressed interest in serving on this authority, who have a financial, personal, and professional vested interest in the parking in this town, as opposed to perhaps what we had before. And I think it should serve the authority and the city well.
May I comment, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
mind?
No, Richard, I love
Well,
Yes,
Mr.
please
Bald-
comment, okay.
Mr. Baldinari, the problem is that you have 3 people that are affected by the garage. You don't have any common citizen, so to speak, that really could care less about that garage being built to the full extent that it was. You don't have any representative from Main Street, although there was no applicants. You don't have any representative from Depot Street, and I think that there will be a slant on the parking authority with the 3 people that have been chosen, just because they are using that garage and want to reconstruct it. That's my comments.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to add that Richard views this as a problem. I view it otherwise.
Well, those were our choices, they had time they could have even been here tonight and put in their names for us. Thank you, Mr. Jim.
Madam Mayor, members of
Count.
council, we have one other item on the, that has been advertised for action, and that is the appointment of an investment banker and bond counsel for a 2012 general obligation bonds to pay for the parking garage project, as well as other parking updates and renovations throughout the city.
Okay, Mr. Kelly.
At this point, Madam Mayor, members of council, I'm looking for your guidance as to whom I should propose for the investment banker and whom I should propose for the bond counsel. Maybe to start off, discussions have been had with PNC Capital Markets as our investment banker and with Lynch & Lynch as our bond counsel. The principals of those 2 entities were involved with the city and guided us through our 2002 general obligation bond issuance.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah.
Is that what
Well-
you need? What do you need?
You need a first and second if you're gonna go with the resolution.
I will read a resolution. Maybe the easiest way is to start off. I'll read a resolution with those names involved, and we'll go from there. The resolution is appointing PNC Capital Markets as investment banker and Lynch & Lynch Attorneys at Law as bond counsel for the issuance of the 2012 series general obligation bonds for the parking system renovation and improvement project. And whereas the parking garage in the downtown business area is in such a state of deterioration that the garage was required to be closed for safety reasons since July of 2010, and whereas the council of the city of Latrobe believes it to be in the best interest of the community to repair and or refurbish the existing parking garage and to make other improvements to the overall Latrobe parking system here and after known as the project, and whereas in order to finance the cost of the project, it is necessary for the city of Latrobe to borrow funds through the issuance of general obligation bonds, and whereas bid specifications have been advertised, bids have been received for 2 alternatives for the repair and renovation of the parking garage, and whereas it's believed that the Latrobe Parking Authority will award a bid to the lowest bidder for a bid-based 1 rehabilitation, and whereas in order to undertake the project, the city will need to raise the sum of $3 million for the project, together with sufficient funds to cover costs of issuance and refinancing of the 2002 general obligation bonds. And whereas in order to do so, the city now desires to appoint an investment banker and bond counsel for the issuance of a 2012 series general obligation bond in an amount not to exceed $3,885,000. Now therefore be it resolved, section 1, that the council of the city of Latrobe does hereby appoint PNC Capital Markets as investment banker and Lynch Attorneys at Law as bond counsel for the issuance of the 2012 series general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $3,885,000, Section 2, that the council of the city of Latrobe hereby authorizes and directs the agents, servants, and employees of PNC Capital Markets Investment Banker and Lynch Bond Counsel, as well as the mayor, city manager, city secretary, and city solicitor, and any other proper city officer to take any and all action necessary and to sign any and all documents necessary to cause the issuance of the above described 2012 series general obligation bonds to accomplish the purpose of this resolution resolved in council of the state. The motion would be to adopt the resolution as outlined by the solicitor.
Okay, have a motion?
I can't ask a question until we have a motion in a second, right?
You should have a motion.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks. Mrs. Wolford, second.
I'll second that.
Mr. DiVincenzo. And now questions and.
Who's
Mike?
Lynch and Lynch? And who's Lynch and Lynch? Was that your question?
Principally, Thomas Lynch was bond counsel for us during the last of 2002 series of bond issuance. He's with the firm of Lynch and Lynch in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
And did
Mike?
they, excuse me,
Mike? Mike?
go ahead, Mike.
In here, you have about base bid 1.
Mhm.
If it's so decided that base bid 1 isn't what we're gonna go for, would we have to go through all this again, or is this
Now,
rest?
we have $3,885,000 were approved. It's got to pay for whatever.
Whatever gets used.
We're saying to the authority, that's as much as we're going to.
Alex?
Just to clarify, you're saying that when it says whereas it is believed that the parking authority will award the low base bid 1, you're saying that's not binding and it's not going to, if, for example, another alternative is selected, hold up, we would have to do this again.
No, we won't have to do it unless or until we would exceed the $3,885,000. Then we have
No,
to.
not to exceed that, but let's say something less than
And we can borrow less than that.
Madam
Okay,
Mayor,
Mr. Jim?
I have a problem. I think you're trying to do two things with this resolution. The first of which is to appoint the bond counsel and the management PNC, neither of which I have objection to. I know Mr. Lynch and I've worked previously with PNC, but you also put a firm figure as if we have to buy bonds for the $3,885,000. And that's something that I object to. I think that there's a better way to do it. We have a $750,000 bond issue out there, which theoretically could be paid off, not through a bond issue, but perhaps through any kind of a note. We're borrowing $400,000 right now from Commercial Bank for 3 or 4 months. $750,000 is not a very long stretch. You could refinance that, I'm sure, over a 12-year period and reduce perhaps the expense stream from $170,000 a year, which is what we currently pay, down to $70,000 or $75,000. Therefore, I think that a little bit more work has to be done, and some consideration given to perhaps seeking the refinancing of that $750,000. Furthermore, it's at 4.6%, and it's going to go up to 4.95% in 2016. There isn't a mortgage out there that's 12 years where they're paying 4.6% and 4.95%. So I think we have to look at that. And I would like to amend that resolution that we hire the bond counsel and PNC if and when we go through with the bond issuance. But I'm not sure that we're going to be using $750,000 of that within the bond issue, and I'm not sure what we're going to do with the money when we get it. And also, I don't know what the charges are at PNC, and I don't know what Mr. Lynch is going to charge. So there's too many questions that have to be answered. That's why I want to amend it and just approve the bond counsel and PNC.
Rosie?
I thought Mr. Kelly, could we put it in, can we say it in such a way that it's up to, and doesn't have to be, I mean, I thought it was up to 3.8. Not to exceed, so in other words, Richard, well, let me just say.
No, you don't have a right to argue until either this motion is seconded or isn't. My motion is to divide the two items. It's second.
Well, we have to have an amendment.
I really didn't mean to argue, I just was asking a question.
The motion has been made to amend. We should have a second before we
Okay.
debate.
All right, Mr. Jim, motion to amend. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Skipper, second.
Now,
All in
I guess
favor?
my question is,
All-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it just might be,
Now,
it just might be helpful to clarify, you made a couple comments, on your, credenzas is the packet provided by PNC. It's dated October 13th, 2001. This was, done at our request, not by bid. This was submitted to us, and if you look at the yellow tab, that's sort of the page that gives you the amount of what it would cost to finance the $3 million for capital, rolling in the $772,000 of the 2002 issuance, and then the fees. Basically, if you notice on that page 2, the column that's highlighted, $3 million, the estimated cost of issuance includes bond counsel and the PNC fees. So you do have that number. PNC fees are about $35,000 of that. The rest of that would be, I would assume, it's correct to say, for Lynch and Lynch.
Where is that?
No, in addition to that would be the rating, the insurance,
Yeah.
legal,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
advertising.
Yeah.
All the.
So again, but the 112 is inclusive of all
Of
of
all
the fees
fees.
for issuance. There's no extra fee that
Is
you
it
don't see.
broken out in here, though?
Yes, it is.
Which item
This would be
is that?
column number 1 in section C on page 2. So the one that is the yellow tab, the highlighted column, page 2, you can see the estimated cost of issuance is $112,863.87. And again, as of October 2011. What you're suggesting, I guess that's the answer to the question. You don't know what the costs are. That's the cost of financing and rolling in that $772,000. Of course, we made a payment, so that number will be different on that bond. We made a payment this year that will actually reduce that amount.
Essentially,
of the
you're
refinance.
saying that to get this $3,880,000 bond issue, we're going to have to pay $112,000.
To finance $3 million plus a $772 refinancing in 2002 will cost $112,000 and some change, as it's detailed in that column.
And I presume Mr. Lynch and PNC are charging the usual rate or better than the usual rate. I don't know. What I'm asking you, what was the rate?
Yeah, well, what I did for council's benefit was present to you a spreadsheet that looks like this from Cruz and Associates. I presented that to you to show that, I just felt it necessary to do due diligence, to look at what someone else would say. Cruz and Associates has most recently done the financing for the city of Greensburg's parking garage. Based on their numbers, I feel fine with the numbers that PNC has submitted and would be more than comfortable in going along with PNC and Lynch for the bond counsel.
My motion was to separate the two items.
I don't think after tonight, the motion that as worded and passed would preclude us from discussing more options on the refinance and the $3 million.
the other question I wanted to ask Mr. McKay, would a lessening of the amount borrowed under the bond, going down, let's say from 3.7 to 3 million, would that impact the rate at all? In other words, there's less of a bond being issued, would that cause the rate to increase in any way? Or does the rate become better the greater the bond issue?
Well, I think the rate's probably gonna be pretty close because even though there's one bond issue, there's part of the bond issue allocated to the refinancing, and we're keeping that term the same. Those bonds go to 2016. The part within the new bond issue goes to the same term. So actually that interest rate is, if we calculate it, it's not in your handout, but it would probably more be in the neighborhood of about 2.5% to 3%. I probably should have broken that out for your benefit, but I didn't do that because it's all one bond issue. The part that's allocated to the $3 million for the project is going to stand on its own. And don't forget, what we're doing here too is wrapping the new bond issue around the old bond issue to keep the payments down as much as possible. When you put the two together, they fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, and the payments are level going out. So by separating the two, you run the risk of not having even payments. It's more efficient to do it all together, because A, you're doing one transaction with one set of fixed costs, and it's all done at once, and then secondly, it's all structured all together, with the goal really being to try to keep the payments down as low as possible over the term that you all have decided, at the amount that you've decided. So that's kind of my answer to the discussion. Certainly, the way I've just heard the resolution, if you go ahead and pass it, we can talk about looking at bids from banks for that other piece. My only concern is that I've been working on this for quite some time, and if you want to add some more time to the process, that's what that will do. So we are in a position, if you decide to move forward here, that a tremendous amount of the groundwork has already been laid over the last couple months, and we would be ready to go to lock an interest rate in probably within the next couple weeks and close on the bond issue in the middle of January, and your money would be in the bank and off you would go. So if time is any consideration, doing it all at once would be the most efficient way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I'd just point out that I believe that we're borrowing $400,000, are we not? And that didn't seem to take too much time.
Is that a line of credit, or is that?
Yeah, line of credit.
That was our tax anticipation.
It's tax anticipation, no, call it what you want, we're on.
Every year.
I understand that part, but what I'm saying is if we can borrow $400,000, we could also borrow $750,000 to pay off that bond issue. And if my mathematics is worth anything, I would say it would save at least $25,000 on fees. We'd get a lower rate, and nobody seems to know what our tax anticipation note rate is. I don't know, I'm surprised.
See, the range that we advertised and received, four proposals, the rates are 1.88 to.
That's unbelievable.
But
You're borrowing money at 1.88%.
But basically, you're saying you're gonna have to pay back within a year. The shorter the term, the lower the interest rate.
And it's based on the tax.
Well, okay, make it a longer term, but when you're getting at 1.88, don't you have to take a little look at the fact that right now we're paying 4.6%, and that bond issue is not going to go away. The way Mr. McCabe, I think you're describing it, that's going to stay level, that 170,000, and we're going to be paying that 4.6% on that 750,000 until it's extinguished. Is that correct?
No, the part that's attributable to the old bond is going to pay off when the old bond's paid off in 2016.
But
The part that's attributable to the new month, the $3 million, is the part that's going to go out.
what I'm saying is the old bond is still sticking at 4.6%.
No, we're going to refinance that down to current rates. It's not going to be at a tax anticipation note rate. I mean, that's a 1 year, rate that you're not going to be able to get for something like that.
I understand that, Mike. I'm just saying that I think we can get a better rate than 4.5% or 4.25%.
You will be with the bond issue. It's going to be somewhere around 3% if I calculated it out. And I'll certainly do that for you tomorrow when I get back to the office.
Well, the last rate I saw was around 4.25.
That's for the whole 23-year borrowing, not the part that's just allocated to the refinancing. There's approximately $40,000 net present value savings to including the refinancing in the bond issue.
Well, I made the motion anyway to hire PNC and to hire Lynch, and that was to amend the original resolution, and it was second.
Yeah. Any other questions on the amendment? Fabian?
Already had a motion.
You're voting on the amendment.
No, we're voting on the amendment. I just want to know if anybody else has any.
It's a motion to amend.
The excuse me, the amendment is to separate whom we're hiring and the amount. We're going to hire PNC and we're going to hire Lynch.
Okay,
Part
what's the amount
two.
to separate?
The
Just-
$3,880,000 we'll vote on again.
For the resolution or for financial?
I think it should be up to $3,880,000.
That's what it says.
So it said?
Yeah.
So now he wants to separate.
Not the way you read it.
Who to hire?
Not to exceed,
Not to exceed.
$3,885,000.
But you tied it into something. Clean the work up and then we can
Hold
go.
on, I think I know what part you're talking about, give me a moment.
Has not to exceed, not to exceed.
Mr. McKay, while we're going through this, is it reasonable to assume that your fee, PNC fee, is in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.5% of the total amount being borrowed?
It's actually under 1%.
Under 1%?
Yeah.
It's fair.
It's a fair rate.
Okay, well, I'm not questioning that. Lynch and Lynch, did they express an interest in serving as our bond counsel?
Absolutely. They've
on
been to a
this?
number of meetings over this process.
They've been involved in,
Mr. Lynch was here at a meeting, I'm trying to think when.
Yeah, he was
I think the paragraph you may be referring to, Mr. Jim, whereas in order to undertake the project, the city will need to raise a sum of $3 million for the project, together with sufficient funds to cover cost of issuance of the refinancing of the 2002 general obligation bonds. That's saying the $3,885,000 is for both purposes.
Do we have any other questions on Mr. Jim's motion? Vote.
Do you want to roll call on that, or?
It could be, since it's a motion to amend, it could be ayes and nays, and if it's too close, then you'd have to do it.
Okay, all in favor? of The motion?
It's a motion to amend.
To amend, motion to amend, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays, against?
So what does this mean now?
So I have.
I just heard 3 yeses, I didn't hear
I
any.
only heard 3 yeses and nothing else.
I'm not sure what,
yeah,
I'm not sure what I'm voting
I'm
on.
not clear on this either. Are we separate, what
The
are the
amendment,
motions
the
on the
amendment, as I
floor?
understand it, and Mr. Jim can correct me. The amendment
Right.
is that we would authorize a borrowing up to $3,885,000 on the general obligation bond, but by amending it to separate out the cost of the refinancing of the 2002 bond, the resolution is not directing that the $3,885,000 be used both for the project and the refinancing. It just says we'll borrow up to that amount. It could be less. Council could ultimately turn around and vote to only to borrow $3 million and to refinance the
Cannot that be done under the original motion? We can at some point later
under the
amend the
original,
amount
under the
that
original
we're-
resolution right
is to
now.
hire and, yeah, okay.
Under the original
Right.
resolution, it is to allocate $3,885,000 to the project and to the refinancing of the 2002. That's what the resolution.
And to hire,
And
and to hire PNC.
Yeah, keep those, keep
Right.
those.
And the change does, what the change makes it different how? It says we don't have to do it?
It
We
says you don't
we
have
don't
to do it, but, you know.
Let me ask this
Two
question.
things are gonna happen. One, somewhere there's got to be guidance given to them as to how much we are going to have the bond issuance. And two, we've got to take a look at the specifications. If we believe that the parking authority will award bid base 1, there is a certain time limit after
December
the award
9th.
that a notice to proceed has to issue. I don't think we want a notice to proceed to issue until we know we have the funds locked in.
All right, let's look at this rather simply. Mr. McKay said that we're going to be refinancing this at approximately 3%. It's saving us $40,000 over the cost of the old loan. Where's the downside?
I don't think he said that.
Yes,
Just
he did.
He just did.
What is the new rate on the bond issue?
The other, The overall rate is what you were quoting, in the high fours. But the part of the bond issue that is attributable to the refinancing part is gonna be around 3%. And when you do the comparison, there's $40,000 in savings.
It says on here 4.114.
Yeah, Mike, just to be clear, on page 2, under the 3 million capital projects, column 1, you have a all-inclusive borrowing cost of 4.114. What's that mean?
That's for the whole 23-year bond issue.
Okay. Would that be fair to say that's the interest rate? Is that what that means?
That's the interest rate on the whole 23-year bond issue. But just like when you, well, the example of the tax anticipation note, the shorter you go, the lower the interest rate.
Sure, I just want to
So if I
clarify.
were to calculate,
Because the number was creeping up, the interest rate was creeping up
Oh.
too.
To
With
high-
5%.
high
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just,
And back to Mr. Molinari's point, that same column is using that number 38,998 for the savings. In other words, when he broke this out, Mr. Jim, he was saying about $40,000 in savings is what we would get by refinancing the 2002 note into this. What your question is, can we do better? In other words, is there a way to finance and retire that debt that can achieve a greater savings?
That's exactly what
So,
I'm saying, is
if you're directing us,
think
the
there
staff-
is. I think there is a way to refinance that $750,000, which will eventually cost us less.
And my answer to that, there probably is, if we're willing to spend more money on a quicker period. In other words, yes, the shorter the term, the shorter the rate, or the lower the rate.
Well,
And yeah, you can do more savings. but-
I'm looking at mortgage rates right now, 15 years, they're less than 4%. 10 years are like, I don't know anybody that's borrowed, but they're 3%. You know, I'm sure that we can beat it. Don't forget, you have the advantage in a city, the interest that's earned on this money is not taxable for ordinary income tax purposes. That's a big advantage.
But I think he's saying that we're already, but I think what you're saying is that for the $772,000, we're only paying 3%.
right. If I were to pull out, let's say we were doing 2 bond issues, okay?
Yeah, let's do
And-
2-1.
And separate them.
Yeah.
Now, we wouldn't want to do that because it's harder to sell. You do a little $700,000 bond issue and the 3 million. It's easier to put them together, but we can do a schedule that shows which part theoretically would repay the bonds, the existing bonds, and which part repays the 3 million. If I did that, which I can do very easily, tomorrow morning, I'm saying that part would go out to 2016, and I could calculate what the interest rate on that is, and much like the example of the 1-year rate being 1.88%, I'm saying the 4-year rate would be, I'm thinking between 2.5 and 3, probably no more than 3%. So the question is, are you gonna do better than 3%? And maybe you could get, I don't know, 2.75, but
You're gonna have to stretch it out beyond 2017 probably.
but a 1/4%, and then you have to add the timing. I mean, maybe you save, I don't know, another $3,000 or $4,000. That's what you're talking about, because you don't have a lot of time to save. The whole thing matures in 2016.
Would there be
Plus, there's a
additional fees
balloon
involved
payment
to
in
that separating that?
2016.
Well, anytime you do 2 transactions, there's gonna be,
a balloon payment in 2016 of
you're gonna have
$325,000.
2 instead of 1.
Right.
People need paid and advertisements and things like that. And, I know it sounds self-serving because I get paid by how big your bond issue is, but, I'm not gonna be paid that much more if you leave in or take out the other. I just really, I think that you're better served with your situation. I think you're gonna be better off to do the whole thing all at once and,
And I'm also concerned that if we wait, then any longer, now we're talking about another, 2 weeks to a month at the earliest that we can vote again. And then, I don't know how rates are gonna move between now.
Well,
All right,
We're in the middle of a vote, though. We already had discussion.
Let's do a roll call.
Well, we were.
On the amendment.
Yeah.
We were on the nays, but there were no nays because these were the questions.
We didn't understand.
Right.
let's say the amendment essentially then is that you can borrow up to $3,880,000. And are you assuring me, Mr. Kelly, that if Alex decides that there's $750,000 that he can borrow at a good rate, that he can do that with the motion that we're about to pass, other than through the bond issue.
Yes, yes.
With the resolution the way it
With the
stands?
resolution as it stands right
Or
now.
with the motion?
There has to come a point where Mr. McKay has to know. So we can't just say, well, maybe 30 days from now, 40 days, we'll tell him how much. He's got to, at what point, Mike, do you have to know what is the amount of the bond issuance? Whether it's to cover both or part?
Well, it would certainly be several days prior to, when we lock the interest rate in. And we were on a course to try to do that in your December meeting.
Okay, so we have about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Is it, can we say that if we don't finance $750,000, roll that over into this bond, that our overall interest rate would increase? Would this decrease the overall rate by financing the additional $750,000? The way I'm seeing it is, you're saying that's, let's just, for the sake of an example, the $750,000 is financed at 3%. The remaining $3 million is financed at 4.5%. Our overall rate is 4.1%. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So if we take out the $750,000, which we were getting at 3%, then our overall rate would be 4.5%.
Right.
I don't think so.
I mean, they both, in that example, they both stand on their own.
He's
So-
telling us if that's the case.
Won't the rate go up as the income, as the,
Amount.
well, no, I'm not even thinking about that. If you wait longer, the longer we wait, wouldn't the rate go higher because the economy seems to be getting better? And therefore, that would probably raise rates.
That's why I said we might.
And if you can lock into a rate right now, before, and the rates are probably gonna go up as the economy kicks in a little bit. I don't know.
That's a question for Milton Friedman.
Well, the bankers should know that. If the economy gets fantastic, don't the interest rates go up?
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's have a roll call. Barb?
Can you please read my motion?
Your motion?
The amending
way you
motion.
stated it, or the way Mr. Kelly stated it?
Well, how about doing it the way I say it, because that's what was seconded.
Okay, let's see. I have to kind of combine the two. Mr. Jim made a motion to amend this resolution to, let's see, to divide hiring the bond counsel and PNC, and to separate the cost of refinancing the 2002 bond and the borrowing of $3 million. That's what I come up with between the two.
I don't know what that means.
Read the second part again.
And to separate the cost of refinancing the 2002 bond and the $3 million. Now that was combining what you had said and the way he worded it, but then you both went off onto other things. You didn't ever give a specific motion.
Well,
I was gonna ask Mr. Kelly as the solicitor if he would write up the actual legal motion.
I think at this point, I am so unsure of what that motion is. It's better
And
to
I'm
come from
supposed
the
to know?
proponent, and we
I think
write it
Mr.
down,
Chairman-
and that's what we vote on. I can say as I understood, but that may not necessarily.
all right. The amendment would be that we separate the hiring of the bond counsel and PNC from the amount that we're going to borrow. And the amount that we're going to borrow will be divided essentially into two parts. One, the possible refinancing of the $750,000, and secondly, the remainder, $3,130,000, No, that we'd have a bond issue up to $3,130,000. So that would bring the total to $3,885,000. $750,000 of it would be any way we could get it through commercial bank or wherever, even PNC perhaps, and the balance would be through a bond issue. That's essentially what I'm saying. We hire the 2 people we need, and we break the issuance into 2 parts, and we go from there.
And then if we find out that, if, let's say tomorrow you call Commercial Bank and find out what a $750,000 mortgage loan, whatever it would be, and it's cheaper, then we can go that way, and, I mean, not just Commercial Bank, but if it's more expensive, then we go this way. That allows us to go either way then?
I would agree to that.
Alex?
Well, that's the question I'd have. I mean, is that the way it's worded in the motion? In other words, are you?
Essentially, I'd like you to seek other financing for the $750,000.
And if better than rolling and wrapping it in, pursue that. If not, just roll them and wrap them.
Correct.
Whichever's better. I guess he's saying, let's keep it open to the point where we have that option.
So do we need 2 resolutions? One,
No.
no, wait a minute,
Because it was the-
he wants to separate, yeah, but to amend it, if he wants to separate the hiring of bond counsel
Yeah.
and PNC, to me, that's one resolution. The other resolution then would be the borrowing part of it. That's the way I'm understanding the way you're saying it. So that would be 2 resolutions then.
Yeah.
Richard.
We have to have it before the 12th.
This is 2012. So, what you wanna do is finance that $750,000 longer.
That is
Less
correct.
money.
That is correct.
Yeah, make it like, earlier he was suggesting possibly a 6 or 8 year term. And just have it stand alone with the idea that it's not a bad time to refinance anything right now. And maybe if it was just by itself, we could actually, our annual net debt service or combined debt service would be less than if they were combined in the 23 year.
You think you could?
Wasn't that original
We
debt
already
though by
have
the
that.
authority?
So you're gonna have
You sit there,
No.
What?
No?
okay, you pay 10 years on this at this rate here. Okay, you got 5 years left. Now you're gonna pay a little cheaper rate. You put them both together, you spend more on that loan.
Well, that's what we gotta figure out. That's what, you gotta run the, I think you gotta run the numbers, Alex. Is that something
Yeah.
that you think could be done relatively quickly and
Yeah,
easily?
we can make that attempt to get that done. We have to, obviously. That's what the direction is. And the goal would be by the Monday, December 12th meeting.
Okay.
But sooner the better.
We need to tell Mr. McKay by the 12th,
Okay.
Right.
what amount of bond is going to be issued.
Prior to, right? He
Yeah,
can
but
figure it
Mr.
out
Kelly, you don't know
One
what,
day.
you don't know what's going to be recommended either, what contract they're going to enter into. You know, so you may not be able to tell it by the 12th.
Well, let's make an assumption that the parking authority would meet and discuss the bids and would come to a decision.
Yes.
Let's make that assumption. And just for the sake of argument, since it's been debated back and forth, let us assume that the low bidder is bid base 1. We now have an amount, we know what that is. One of the issues we've got to deal with is, and I don't have the specs in front of me, I think the bid has to be accepted or rejected, anything,
By the 9th.
by the 8th or 9th of December.
Right.
Then there is a certain time frame after which there is a notice to proceed.
Right.
I would not recommend that we issue that notice without having the funds locked in place. I mean, we may not have the money in hand, but everything's locked in place. So we have those considerations as to how much time we can take
Right.
to look at alternatives.
I think it sounds like this won't slow us down terribly long
It really shouldn't.
would you agree with that, Alex? I mean, is this gonna, I wanna move. I'm tired of talking about this. We're all tired of talking about this. And, you know, I tend to agree with Fabe. I don't know that this is, I can't see in my mind, I mean, when I refinance, I wrap everything together because it's cheaper. So I can't see how this would be cheaper to separate it out, but, I'm certainly not a banker, and I'm not as well versed in that sort of thing as Mr. Jim is, so. But if it's not gonna take that long to run the numbers, I don't have a problem with it.
It'll save, about $1.5 million.
I have to see to believe it. I don't see how.
Then I think what?
Based on what he's telling us.
$100,000 a year in payments.
I don't see how. He's telling you we're only paying 3% for that.
No, what I mean is, if you can, cut that 170,000 down to 100,000, or excuse me, 70,000, it'll be equal to $1.5 million.
How do we cut it from?
By refinancing it.
Wait a second.
I don't know, I just went to the
We
bank to see if I could
still owe
remortgage my
5 years
house,
on
and what I paid on it already, and they said, well, I can give it to you another 15 years, so I'm gonna be paying 6 more years. So when I added that 6 years into what I paid already, I'm paying more. I thought I'd just stayed on my loan right there and finish out paying. Because my payment's gonna be a little cheaper, but that's it, and no way. And you got the contract right back there setting, and he, you know what, 2012 will be higher in getting stuff done. It's just like the dentist there, he's gonna do teeth in 2012, attorney sitting there in 2000, everything goes up a little bit, you know what I mean? So he's not gonna hold that contract to what he's sitting on right now. Am I telling the truth there, bud?
Meaning what?
Like 2011?
If you were to rebid the job,
Right.
which, I don't know, you know what I mean? It all depends on what, I can't say what it would be.
Just say
for.
2012 you're rebidding now. The 2011 you gave us rates already.
I don't even want to comment on rebidding
Right.
the job any further.
Yeah.
Because every time I do, it seems that the scope gets changed away from
Yeah,
our
all this,
favor,
okay.
let's say.
Okay,
All this does is give us the ability to look at it both ways, but it still allows us, it allows us to go whichever way's cheaper.
okay, so
Alex, are you okay with this? Are
I mean, to
you?
be fair, the only thing I can think of is to treat it like we did the tax anticipation note, and tomorrow advertise that by the 7th of December, banks give to us their term and rate for refinancing of the 700 and change. I mean, it's the only way we can do it, really.
But not as a general
Well, but-
obligation bond.
Yeah. 'cause
We'd
it can't be
almost,
that.
we'd almost have
Every
to
year.
seek alternatives on, depending on the maturity. How long do we finance? We could finance 10 years, 5 years, 15?
But we still owe 5.
My point being, you know, you can't just say, give us a rate.
Well, sure,
For what
but
term?
what I'm saying is that the advertisement would include some of those parameters, and.
Richard, how do you think by taking it from being paid off in 4 years and extending it
Yeah.
another 8 years is gonna save us money?
$5, 10, 15, 20.
I mean,
The reason I'm saying that is the interest rate that we're paying on the $750,000 now is 4.65% and 4.6%, and it's going up to 4.95%.
but it's not though. I mean, it's 4.6% now, but when we refinance it,
It's going to 3%, and it'll be paid off, that section will be paid off in 5 years.
I don't see.
We're not talking
2015.
usurious rates here, Richard. That you're talking, that we haven't currently financed that. I like to keep things simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's tie it all together in a package and just go with it.
Can he give us a 3% rate on $3,880,000 for whatever it
No.
is, 15%?
No.
but nobody's gonna give us a 3% rate for 3 million.
who's gonna give us?
All right, well,
Okay, Barb.
we need to vote on.
Where you wanna read whatever it is?
You wanna have a
Richard's
roll
motion.
call on the motion to amend?
Yes, please.
Okay. This will be on the motion to amend. Mrs. Wolford?
No,
Mr. Giovanangelo?
No.
Mr. Scapora?
No.
Mr. Baldneri?
No.
Mr. Jim?
Quiet, yes.
Mayor Griffin?
No.
That is, what did 5 no nays.
Now we.
Porter, whoever seconded that motion, I don't think they can reverse their vote.
Oh, is that me?
Just because I second that motion, has to get it going. I don't have to say no.
Yeah,
I
you can't
have
change it.
support.
Second, yeah.
The second.
Original motion.
I have Mr. DeBoer.
Yeah, you did.
If you second
That
it,
was
you
the
can.
original, was the original, then it changed 3 times.
Yeah, you're not allowed to vote no if you make the motion, but you're allowed to vote no if you second it, correct?
I think, yeah.
If you make the motion, you have to vote yes.
Okay. All right.
We are now back on the resolution as read,
We have,
and that would be a roll call vote because it is a resolution.
yes. Okay, Barb?
This is resolution 2011-70. Mr. Baldner.
Yes. I don't know what I'm voting on.
The
Yes.
original resolution
As it
appointing
stands.
PNC and
original one.
Lynch and Lynch.
Yes, I know, yes, yes.
For the whole ball of wax.
Mrs. Wolford.
Yes.
Mr. Scapora.
Yes.
Mr. Jim.
Yes,
Mr. DiManangelo.
Yes.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Vote is 6 yes.
Motion carried.
Can I just ask a question? If it's not too much trouble for Mr. McKay to break that out, maybe
I'd be
Rich will
happy
feel
to.
better if he sees it broken out?
He offered.
I'd have to have a one-on-one discussion with him.
He doesn't want to
No, I'd be happy with that. Absolutely.
The interest rates will go up.
He's met tougher people, I'm sure.
Don't increase our fee.
That concludes the special.
Close the special meeting.
We have to make a motion to adjourn.
No, we have to do the agenda part yet.
Well, we're adjourning the special.
Adjourning meeting, I know, I so
Vote for,
moved.
to adjourn the special meeting. Mr. Baldner?
Aye.
Mr. Scapora, in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Special meeting adjourned.
Take 2 or 3 minutes.